Good morning. This is for my friends who've been absent. Last week we learned an important skill in grammar that I don't want you to have missed because you were out sick. So this presentation is going to be about prepositions and using prepositional phrases in your writing. So right here you'll see a box, and this is the copy that I used for everyone. So just pay attention to one of the boxes. And this says common English prepositions. So prepositions are words that show relationship to a noun in the sentence. So you might say that this is about something, or this thing is above it, or behind it, or beside it. Those are prepositions. When you were younger, your teachers taught you about prepositions, and they tested you to see, do you know what above means? Do you know what below means, or behind? Here in fourth grade, we're more worried about prepositional phrases and how to write those correctly in our writing. So we're going to move over here, and you'll see this first paragraph. This says, over the summer, I asked all my students to come up with their own precept, write it on a postcard, and mail it to me from wherever they go on their summer vacation. So in this sentence, over the summer, right here, is a prepositional phrase. And you'll notice some punctuation with it, that there is a comma after the prepositional phrase. So over is our preposition, and our phrase is over the summer. And because it's a prepositional phrase that begins the sentence, it has to have a comma after it. Okay? Now you also see that in the second sentence where it says, as I wrote down Mr. Brown's September precept, I suddenly realized I was going to like school. So as is the preposition, and since that preposition is part of a phrase that begins the sentence, you'll see the same punctuation. As I wrote down Mr. Brown's September precept, comma, I suddenly realized I was going to like school. So this preposition describes or gives more information about how they suddenly realized they were going to like school. So that's what a prepositional phrase does. It gives you more information for the sentence. So here's some more examples of prepositions. On is a preposition on her boat, in a house, near a goat, which sounds like green eggs and ham. And here are common English prepositions. This is not all of them. Through our work last week, the students have noticed that there are quite a few more that are not on this list, but it's just a few for you to start with. So looking here, you see three sentences that contain prepositional phrases. So let's look at the first sentence. The first sentence says, under my bed, I saw a sandwich from last week, and it started to mold and stink like a dirty sock. Okay, so we have a prepositional phrase that begins the sentence. We have under my bed. Okay, so under is our preposition, and here's the whole phrase. Under what? Under my bed, and you'll notice dun, 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 the comma. If you have a prepositional phrase at the beginning of a sentence, it always has a comma after it. Okay. Then we have, let's look at this one. This does not have a prepositional phrase at the beginning of the sentence. The second one does not. So you'll see that it says, my friends and I love to play hide and go seek in my house. In my house is the prepositional phrase because it says where it happened. And here's our preposition in. Because the phrase is at the end of a sentence, no comma is needed. Okay, so then let's look at the third one. After school, I go to gymnastics and practice for 2 hours. There's a couple of prepositional phrases in this sentence, but there is one at the beginning. We have after school, comma. You notice this is punctuated correctly because there's a comma after that prepositional phrase, after school. Okay. So now let's look at this question. This is in the editing format that we looked at last week when we had our test. So we have a sentence here, and it says, by the end of lunch, we had come up with a whole list of names of kids and teachers who could sat at our table if they wanted. And then the question is, what change should be made to sentence 1? And we have change come to came. If we did that, it would say, by the end of lunch, we had came up with a whole list of names of kids and teachers. Had came up with is not the correct way to say that. So it's not going to be A. Add a comma after lunch. By the end of lunch, comma, we had come up with a whole list of names of kids and teachers. That makes sense because it looks like by the end of lunch would be a prepositional phrase. So you would need a comma there. Add a comma after kids, like right here. A whole list of names of kids, comma, and teachers. I think they're going to fool some people with that one because it looks like they're making a list, but our list only has 2 items in it. So because there's only 2 items, you do not need a comma. And because we saw that prepositional phrase, we know that a change is needed. So the correct answer was B. We would put a comma here. By the end of lunch, comma. We had come up with a whole list of names of kids and teachers, okay, because that's a prepositional phrase. Now let's look at another one. By the end of lunch, we had come up, same sentence, we had come up with a whole list of names of kids and teachers who could sit at our table if they wanted. Change had to have. By the end of lunch, we have come up with. This is the wrong tense, right? We need the past tense, so it's not A. Change kids to kids with an apostrophe S. We're learning that this week. If it's plural, you do not put an apostrophe, only if it's possessive, and here the kids don't own anything. It's just more than one kid and teacher, so no apostrophe, so it's not B. Change sat to sit. By the end of lunch, we had come up with a whole list of names of kids and teachers who could sit at our table if they wanted. That would be it, right? Because sat is in the wrong tense. So there, the correct answer would be C. Okie dokie. Any further questions, make sure you come ask me, and we'll talk about this in writing in mentor sentences and other things throughout the year. But I wanted to make sure you are caught up on prepositions and prepositional phrases.